Kapil from Priya Kapil Astrology. Today I'm going to be giving a snapshot of the planets in the month of May in the Vedic Sky. So we're starting the month with Sun in the sign of Aries, where it's exalted, and that will continue throughout there for the rest of the month. Mercury is also in the sign of Aries, and it is with Sun. So the last month it's been debilitated in Pisces, so now we've kind of passed that stage and it's in the sign of Aries, getting that bit of more of a power from the planet Sun, so in a positive way, hopefully helping people to think more clearly, being able to make a bit more informed decisions and so on. Now here's the thing with Mercury this month, it's actually going to be jumping 3 times, 3 different signs, okay? So at the moment it's in Aries, okay, and it's going to move into Taurus on the 9th of May, along with Venus there, and then it will again move into Gemini on the 24th of May. So it's movement of 3 different signs, which is quite key this month. So what does that mean? It kind of means that there's going to be a lot of power behind Mercury, but also there's going to be an ability to change our views quite quickly as well. So once Mercury moves into the sign of Taurus, what will happen is that being with Venus and being in the earthy sign, it will bring things out into the open regarding economy, regarding our material finances. We may start thinking a bit more on a practical level of, you know, how we're going to plan out for the rest of the year and so on. On a more global scale, you know, the economy could be uplifted, so we might see sort of temporary boosts in, you know, the stock market or the economy as a whole. Any plans to, you know, globally try to settle down the damage that's been happening. It's not going to be purely, you know, it's not going to be permanent right now, it's going to be temporary, but we will see some talks around those areas as well. Once it gets into Gemini, at that stage it will be quite comfortable in its own sign. The risk that runs there is that false rumours or, you know, not carrying out the plans that we had talked about or that we had thought that we were going to do. So that's how Mercury is going to be moving throughout the month of May. The other key thing is Venus. Now Venus is in its own sign of Taurus, and again that sort of backs up the whole talks about Mercury being in an earthy sign, a materialistic sign, because Venus, placed in its own house, will bring matters to the forefront related to finances. So there's going to be a lot on people's mind about, you know, their future, about their savings, about how they can plan ahead and how they can budget more, you know, proactively, so to speak. Mars is going to be moving from the sign of Capricorn, where it's been exalted, and it's going to be moving into Aquarius and staying there until June the 18th. So there will be a shift in terms of the energies that it was bringing about in Capricorn, the structured approach. It will be more into a more, you can say either a rebellious, or you can say something where it brings about changes which are unplanned. Okay, so it's something to watch out there. Saturn will be staying in the sign of Capricorn, in its own house. However, it will be going retrograde. Okay, so Saturn will be going retrograde on May the 11th and will remain retrograde until September the 29th. So one thing to signal there is that people who do suffer from things like breathing conditions, asthma, any respiratory type of illnesses, or have any back pain and so on, anything related to the Saturn type of ailments, be careful that they don't flare up, and if they do, obviously take the advice of a GP and a medical practitioner, that's very important. But be careful that you're aware of that and you don't ignore anything, that you're on top of things and so on, because what I have seen is that when Saturn goes retrograde, it does give a rise in chest infections, especially in the elderly and those that are more vulnerable. Okay, so Saturn is going retrograde, as we've just spoken about. The other planet, Jupiter, so being in its sign of debilitation in Capricorn, it's going to carry on through Capricorn until June the 29th. Okay, so it will be debilitated until the 29th. But here's the thing, it's also going to be going retrograde, and it will be going retrograde on May the 14th. Okay, and it will remain retrograde until September 13th. So 2 big planets, Jupiter and Saturn, that are going to be going retrograde. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that basically a lot of old things are going to be revisited, but I'm going to add one more thing along with the fact that Saturn and Jupiter are going to be retrograded. So is Venus. So Venus, albeit being in its own sign of Taurus, it will be going retrograde, and it will be going retrograde around May the 13th, and this retrograde will last until June the 25th. So three big planets, three major planets going retrograde, so Jupiter, Saturn and Venus. So again, this means that there's going to be a lot of visiting old issues, old things that have had to be put to rest, partly because of the whole pandemic that's going on, but also partly due to our own reasons. So if you have anything that was stopped halfway, or any sort of work that had been left and you kind of put it in the background for another time, this is the time from sort of middle of May that you're actually going to be starting to think about it again and trying to put some power behind that to get those things done. What I would say, especially for the signs where Capricorn is a prominent house, it is going to be a time where there is going to be a bit of a frustration going on internally, but the best way is to deal with everything practically and try and put in place certain stepping stones or milestones so that you can achieve targets and you can achieve the goals that you've set out to do so. Okay. So the key thing is, be practical in your approach of things, be observant so that you're not negligent on missing out on anything, and get the right information. So with Mercury jumping these three signs, like I said at the beginning, there is a risk that sometimes it's a case of Chinese whispers, where you're thinking one thing and the thought pattern changes so quickly that something else is happening before you've even got to it. So things like that are on the forefront. With Venus going retrograde, again, be careful in terms of love and relationships. There is a chance that sometimes, we misunderstand motives from our partners, or we tend to get more frustrated and that anger comes out in the wrong way. So it's not so much what we say, but it's how we say it. But the key thing that I would say for this month, with all the planets going retrograde, there's going to be a lot of visiting old issues, and if things have been kind of stuck in the pipeline, this may be a good time to kind of revisit them and get the ball rolling again. I hope that's been useful. One thing before I will, end this, is Rahu and Ketu. So Rahu has been transiting in the sign of Gemini, and Ketu in the sign of Sagittarius, and that will continue at the moment. They're not changing signs. But the key thing to note is that Rahu has been in the nakshatra of Ardra for a while now, and when all this pandemic and everything started, Ketu's been in the nakshatra of Mula and Rahu in Ardra, so it has contributed a lot in terms of the growing concerns and the upheaval that's been caused by this pandemic. Okay, the sort of astrological thing that I can see is that Rahu has now moved out of the nakshatra of Ardra, which is the destroying of everything, and the Ketu nakshatra Mula is the rebuilding of things, getting down to the root of things and rebuilding, going back to basics, which we've all been forced to do with this lockdown. Okay, so like I say, Rahu has moved out of the nakshatra of Ardra from the beginning of May, but the key thing is that Ketu is actually still in Mula. Okay, so it's going to carry on a little time longer, the feeling of isolation, the feeling of not being able to, do things as we wanted them and being isolated, okay, and almost going back to basics and starting again. This change of nakshatra of Ketu will be in September. So September 18th is when Ketu is going to move out of the nakshatra of Mula and go into Jyeshtha, and that is when we can hope for some normality, whatever that may be now, to come across. Hope that's been of use and interesting, and I hope to come back real soon with some more videos. Thank you.